Hey, what up? I got like 2 minutes.
Information to be available for you all. It will be available for you all at safesummer2020.org. But my name is Terrence Pruitt. I'm the founder of Project Restore Initiative. My company does healing center work to support youth and community with addressing structural violence. We do that work by developing curriculums for parents and for youth. And we also do that work with capacity building, coaching, and development as it relates to the organizations and companies that interact with our youth and interact with our communities. And so I'm super happy to be with you guys today, and I'll pass it on to Josh to introduce himself.
Thanks, Terrence. Happy Friday, everybody. For me, my Friday is coming to an end, and for you, it's just begun. So my name is Joshua Prudowski. My background is in public health, education, and youth development. In fact, I've done about 6 or 7 one-summer Chicagos myself. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a Chicagoan, and right now I've been living and working in India for the last couple of years. Stephen?
And Josh is, so he's, as he's mentioned, he's been living and working in India for the last couple of years. Previous experience a lot with one summer programs. Also, part of the reason he's part of our, so y'all can help us think through this. I'm Stephen Rosado. My technical title is Chief of Engagement and Strategy for Praxis Institute. I just gave myself the broadest title possible to allow me to do all the things I want to do and not have to feel boxed in. And so I felt like that captured all of it. And what we do is we really just are working practices really around what exactly it sounds like, right? How do we take theory and put it into action and really do it in a way that's centered in the experience and knowledge of the community and the folks who are doing the work. Josh, we're still trying to figure out a title for him. So maybe at the end of this workshop, some of y'all can help us out with some ideas based on your experience with Josh today of what his title should be, because we have not been able to figure one out. And I'm very much of the, you just make your own title background, you call your work what you want to call it. So if folks, later on have a title that comes to mind after interacting with Josh, Framework Guru is a good one. We could go from there. Cool. Josh, you want to talk a little bit about what we're going to do today?
Sure. Okay. So as Stephen mentioned, today is all about facilitation. And by the end of this, we want you to walk away with some strategies and tools for all the different remote sessions you're going to be doing, things that are going to spark and maintain interest in learning, things just to make the sessions fun, to cultivate curiosity. And just like in the beginning when Stephen was playing the music, you want to use a lot of different types of multimedia, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And very importantly, we want to make sure that you're constantly seeking young people's ideas and feedback. We want them to have ownership. This is their time, this is their summer, and we need to be very much aware of that. So the agenda is broken up into 4 parts today. 1, we're just going to do a broad overview of the day. Then we're going to talk about the role of the facilitator, especially in the context of one summer. Then we'll go over a checklist of things you might want to do before the summer starts. Then we'll look at a sample plan that we could create and some tools and strategies to successfully implement that plan. And then we'll close.
But before we get into that, we actually want to give folks a second to ground themselves. So for those of you who are with us earlier, if this is your first time with us, just the expectation always in our work is we want to center ourselves and where we're at, and we want to remove any distraction that we were bringing into our work, any kind of energy we were bringing into it that wasn't allowing us to be fully present in our space or as present as possible as we can be. And we really want to ground ourselves in just our breath and the centering of our experience in our minds and souls. And so for that, I actually want us to take a stop break for mindfulness, and I'm going to guide folks through a mindfulness meditation activity. So if you can participate, whether you are on camera or off camera, if you are able to follow along with the instructions, I'm just gonna list out the instructions step by step, and we're gonna go ahead and just go through a collective experience around mindfulness and reflection to ground us, to get ready to really absorb the work that we're gonna go through together in the next 80 or so minutes. And so the first thing I would ask for everyone is to just, this is an acronym. There's different ways of doing this acronym. I'm going to do it in the way that I want us to be a little bit physically active, as much as possible as we could virtually. So if you are able to, wherever you are at right now, if you could just stand up, and I will model it. I will stand up as well, adjust my computer. But if you can just stand up for a second, if you're able to, just stand up. Go ahead and take a deep breath, right? We want to breathe, if you can, possibly breathing in from your belly. You want to find kind of where that breath is. We're going to say tune. We're going to use the T now, right? We want to get in tune to our body. So take a deep breath and try to locate where that breath is coming from, right? Where does your breath originate from? Is your breath originating, out of your stomach? Do you feel it in your chest? Are you unable to feel your breath? If you can't locate your breath, I would say put your hands on your stomach to help you locate your breath, right? But taking a deep breath, tuning into your body, right? Tuning into your breath, getting centered with that. And then after you've taken a few deep breaths, right? We'll just go through it together. Let's take a deep breath. Hopefully you've located where your breathing comes from. If you've been unable to, you can always find it in your belly, right? But locate where your breathing comes from. Let's just take one collective deep breath. And exhale. And let's just do one more collective deep breath to tune our bodies. And exhale. And now just take a moment to observe. Stand and observe your surroundings wherever you're at. And I just want you to just take in the surrounding of where you're at in this moment in time, physically. Observe how you're feeling. Observe all the emotions that are kind of running through you, the feelings, the things that you might have been carrying into this work today, that you're carrying into it every day. Observe and allow it to be there. But what we want to do as we're observing is, in continuing to do deep breathing as we're observing, is to transition into thinking about how we want to proceed and how we want to proceed collectively together with the rest of our time. And so how do you want to proceed in this space? And just all I'm going to ask you, you don't have to share this out, but how do you want to proceed together for the next, 75, 80 minutes? How do you want to proceed? What is your intention? And just whatever that intention is, just say it to yourself in your head, recite it to yourself in your head of, this is how I want to proceed for the next 75 minutes, right? Breathe in that energy of what you want and release the energy of the things that you don't want into this space for the next 75 minutes. And then go ahead and take a seat when you're ready, and we can go ahead and get started with our content. Again, we always want to just ground ourselves and just pause for a second before we get into the work, because we're always so much go, especially I think in this Zoom world, right? Sometimes we're hopping from Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, and I think it's good for us to slow down and ground ourselves. Josh?
Yeah, thanks, Stephen. And what Stephen did, that's a really important thing to think about in terms of engagement. It's really helpful in keeping the group focused. It's a way to keep people centered. So definitely do a lot of these different breathing exercises. And a little bit later, we'll talk about some of the different kinds of energizers. And Terrence can talk about some of the breathing tools that are out there as well. So I want everyone now, we're just going to quickly answer a question. We're going to fill in the blank in the Zoom box. You're going to send this to everybody. Now, I know I've been part of many One Summer Chicago programs. They can be challenging. They're incredible. They're some of the best experiences I've had, but they can be challenging. Now, I just want you to answer this question. Adding remote to the mix. You can fill in the blank. Adding remote to the mix will... just take a couple minutes and you can fill in the blank in the chat box.
And I'll go ahead and continue playing some music for folks.
Don't land. Yeah, the time is ticking. Come take a ride. Inside, this is highly different. I'm talking fly, got a pilot with it. Can I mind my business? Why you tripping? Give you something that your eyes can witness. Ooh, you too close.
So seeing some really great responses already. Complicate things, definitely, right? I mean, one of the biggest complications is the reality that some of our young people won't be able to be on camera, right? Ever, right? They may have a lack of. Oh, there's a lot. Whoa, this is flying fast. All right, cool. We're gonna synthesize this, but this is great. Allison, I like your asset approach of allowing more youth to potentially join because transportation is a barrier that's been removed, right? We do understand the tech barrier, but there's also a transportation barrier. And if the tech barrier has been resolved, right, then that potentially means that, without having the transportation issue, that can be really helpful.
Shout out to Meg, because Meg and Allison are both vibing the same way. They're both thinking about how many more youth can be reached because now we're in the virtual space. Shout out to Meg. Shout out to Chelsea. Thank you. It will change how we connect with youth. That's similar to what my offering was. It definitely will cause us to develop skills. Shout out to Deshonda. It will challenge a leader. Absolutely. I'm seeing challenge a lot, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of folks acknowledging challenge, but I'm also seeing a lot of folks doing one of the big things we push for, Terrence and I, in our work, which is dreaming and imagining, right? We have known as practitioners in this work, even in person, right, that there were things that we could have been doing differently, and there were structures and ways and approaches that we needed to be envisioning even before we went virtual, right? And now it has really been forced upon us to really think about what that looks like, and what that dreaming looks like of the future world we want to have for our young people in these practices, in these virtual spaces. We're gonna give folks about 30 more seconds to share. And then we're gonna continue moving on to the next piece. We got a lot of content for y'all we want to get through, but please continue to share your feedback in this. Terrence, anything else sticking out to you right now?
I'm seeing a lot of talk about dreaming, a lot of talk about innovation. I really appreciate that those are absolutely perspectives to bring into this space, that throwing remote to the mix will cause us to focus on innovation and figuring out ways to dream of new spaces. Go ahead, Josh.
No, Terrence, actually, I was going to talk about the same thing. I'm seeing a lot of, this is an opportunity for innovation, for creativity. I saw a lot of people talking about new, and that it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that people are welcoming in a lot of ways to build our knowledge and skills, and to build the knowledge and skills of our young people. So I hope that's also how we can, that's the mindset that we can approach this session and approach the summer. So just really quickly, there are a couple of assumptions that I've made before doing this session. Like I said, I have not been in Chicago for a couple of years, but I do, here's just a list of assumptions that the majority of your sessions will be done remotely. Everyone here has some experience working with young people. You've done some kind of remote meetings and facilitation. You have a little experience using Zoom. And of course, you all have different projects and different needs. There is not a one size fits all. Go to the next slide, please. And so with that said, we can show you some strategies and tools, right? But because every organization, every program is going to be a little different, you're going to need to practice and do some research on how to customize these tools, these resources to meet the objectives of your program. Now, before you can even start the summer, and this is something that we'll talk about next week during the orientation training, but I just want to put this on everyone's radar because it's something you can start doing now. For the students that you've already recruited, you want to first assess that what the level of access they have and what kind of digital literacy have. What are their strengths and what are some areas that they'll need to work on? With that information, that's going to be crucial information to then develop your support plan. That support plan is going to be so important for the rest of your summer to meet the needs of all of your different youth that you're working with. Also, you want to do this before orientation, is send and install all the links, the apps, the platforms, and when necessary, and I'd recommend doing it with everyone, providing one-on-one or small group trainings. Also, you want to create a certain type of routine and schedule and make people aware of that as early as possible because it's going to take some time to build that up. You're going to want to manage and develop your digital resource library. And I know we were asset-based today, super asset-based, but we do need to think of, especially with tech, with this new concept that everyone talked about, all the different worst-case scenarios, and then think of the solutions to that so we feel more prepared. And then even to be more prepared, we need to do a lot of practice. Think of all the things that you find most challenging on Zoom. And then and practice that so you're ready for the summer. I noticed that Leslie brought up what is a digital resource library. It could be different tools that you'll be using throughout the summer, different links, different articles. It'll depend on the needs. And I can actually send a sample to everyone at the end of this training that people can use.
But
so I
I
don't
think
know.
one of Leslie's staff members, probably because you're on the MHA account, I would assume maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure. But Leslie or Leslie's staff member. Oh wow, you said Leslie as well. I'm not sure. But yes, we will submit. We have some supplemental materials, some tools specific to this workshop that we are going to send out that are going to be on the MHA Resource Lab and Hub connected to this. So be on the lookout for those. Those will be available in the next day or so.
And Josh,
Yeah.
before you move on, I just want to make
Please.
sure we don't have that happen again. If anyone's name is not what it's supposed to be, you can rename yourself. So what we would like for you to do, and I'll actually do an example of it, we would love if when you rename yourself, if you also give us your pronouns so that we can make sure that everyone is affirmed in their identity and we are saying your name correctly. We don't want to call anybody by a name that they don't want to be called by. So my name is Terrence Pruitt, but I'm also going to put in he, his, and him. And one of my tags that I always have with hella love connected to it, because you can say him and you can be mean too. So go ahead and change your names or check your names to make sure your names are correct, because we want to make sure that we call out the right name when we're engaging with you. Go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, sorry about that, Courtney. So let's go back to thinking about facilitation, and we're going to think about the role of a facilitator. Again, if we could all answer in the Zoom chat box. For your program, write 1 to 2 sentences to describe the role of a facilitator. Why don't we just take about 90 seconds and just write down anything that comes to mind. There's no right or wrong answers here.
I'll throw on some music for us.
Okay, empathetic, I like that. Mentorship, absolutely, and that goes back to the relationship building that Terrence and Stephen were just talking about. Yep. Yep.
Watch you pour that steady. Sip it till we slow. Take these broken.
Yep. Youth voice is extremely important. They need to own the space. This is their summer.
She knows what I'm missing. I need what she knows. Feathered one of many. Birds of prey in vogue. Watch you pour that steady. Sip it till we slow.
Shout out to Johnny. I see Johnny saying help them connect. Shout out to Emily, creating and providing a safe and supportive space. Adrian, creating support. I see a lot of safety. I see a lot of support. I'm wondering if they were in the session with us earlier, Josh. Great, great. Building community. Facilitators provide safe space, create space for creativity. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Jared. David, I see you.
The tunes are courtesy of Terrence. Also, the tunes will be courtesy of young people in the future. You know, ask the young people to build out the playlist. Seen a lot of things around how we make space for young people and connect that to their interests. And I think, you know, one of the things we're talking about, Josh shared earlier, we're really just talking about strategies, right? But these strategies were things that we ideally were doing in person, right? And it's just really all we're doing right now is reimagining what does that look like virtually. Ideally, these are all things you were doing already in ideal circumstances in person. And now we are just thinking of like, okay, we know there's a tech component to it, but how do we still bring that in there, right? And so we're going to go ahead and move along just to be mindful on time for folks, because we do have a lot to cover. So.
Right. Yeah, so the way we're and all of the ideas and the comments that you brought in definitely connect to this. We look at this as someone who guides groups of young people to build relationships, develop new knowledge, skills, create solutions, celebrate, and achieve project objectives. And in a second, we're going to talk a little bit more of the tools and resources to do that. If you just take a second, you could send a direct message in the chat box after looking at this, but just review this document. This was for people that were doing in-person facilitation. But my question is there anything that might be different in a remote setting? So the competencies are the things that you need to know and do. And the primary measures of success is how you know you've been successful as a facilitator. So just take a second, look at this document. Would there be anything different here in a remote setting?
So yeah, take a second, look it over, and then add your feedback in the chat box. Or if you really want to, use the raise hand function, if you would like to share audibly with the group as well, that's great too. We just know some folks are more comfortable with the chat box. Either one. In the meantime, we'll play some music and let folks review.
Stuck with my many motives, I can feel them come up to the surface. Let me feel it once, then let me feel it again. Got it bad, I know that now I've chosen. Nothing stops me from getting closer. Let me feel you once, yes, let me feel it. Take these broken roads, wash it down with Jenny. She knows what I'm missing, I need what she knows. Feathered one of many, birds of prey unfold. Watch you, boy, that's steady. Sip it till we slow.
Any folks got any thoughts around any of this, either in the chat or even if you want to use the raise hand function around anything that's coming to mind about how these things might or might not be different in a remote setting? Love to hear from maybe one or two people if possible. Definitely helping Hermania, yes, helping you navigate the online environment. Showing concern looks differently for sure. I think one of the things, Stephanie, we've talked about in some of these other workshops is in person, you are used to being able to do a pull-out session, right? Like if you notice something with a young person, you can pull them out and have that one-on-one with them. How do you do pull-outs, right, in a virtual setting, right? And not even just how do you do them, but how do you do them effectively, right? Because you could do the pull-out, you could set a breakout room on the spot, but how do you do it effectively? I shared earlier, I'm a body language person. I read and pick up on cues all the time. I think it's one of my big skills, and it has been mitigated by this virtual setting, right? Because I can only really see what you allow me to see from the chest up, and I can't pick up on all these different cues you might be communicating to me with your body, right?
And shout out to Isabel. She said fostering on-task environment will be challenging or different. Absolutely, because while they are on chats with you or while they're working virtually with you, we have access to all forms of distractions. And so that is something that our proxemics kind of shifts with, because we're not all in the same space able to regulate. There are other things that are going to be distracting. So that's why it's important that we set norms. That's also why it's super important that we set expectations around engagement. Not only asking of our youth that they be engaged, but we set the expectation that the material that we put in front of our youth is something that allows them to stay engaged. And so that was a great one, Isabel. Thank you for contributing that.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of
absolutely.
Just one last thing. I've just seen a lot of folks raise up that the nonverbal communication pieces, right, are just going to be harder to pick up on. And so especially think for our young people, just like adults who are naturally introverts, naturally quieter, are not naturally predisposed to being as extroverted or as communicative, right? Not to say they don't communicate, they just communicate differently. And now we're asking them to develop and require a different skill set to be able to participate fully in these virtual settings.
Yeah, great. So I think, everyone was saying makes a lot of sense. You still want to show care and concern, but how you do it will be differently. You still will need to resolve confusion, but again, how you do it will be a different way of doing it. So the what remains the same. The how is what's going to change.
Terrence?
So right now we're going to go into our breakout rooms, and actually, Stephen, if you don't mind copying this and putting it into the chat box, is the question that we want to answer in our rooms is, which of your facilitation which of your facilitation strategies do you think will translate well to a remote setting? So think of the facilitation strategies that you do well now in person. Which ones do you think will translate well to a remote setting? Thank you, Terrence.
No
All right, I'm
problem.
setting up the breakout rooms right now for folks.
And
So
just to
we're gonna
reiterate,
do.
one more time, for anyone that's not able to see it in the chat, I want to just say it for those that are on the phone. What you're discussing when you get into your breakout sessions is that question: which of your facilitation strategies do you think will translate well to a remote setting?
And you'll be about 4 to 5 folks in each breakout room. So you'll have about 10 minutes to each share on this. And we'll also overlay the question in the breakout room again for those of you who are able to see it. But again, just to repeat it one last time for folks who are on the phone and maybe not able to follow along visually, is which of your facilitation strategies do you think will translate well to a remote setting? So creating the breakout rooms now, opening the rooms, and we'll see y'all in about 10 minutes or so. That worked. You're on mute, T.
I said we got people in rooms. I've checked in on one of the rooms. We got a couple more people that still need to be placed.
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't say anyone's unassigned. I think they just haven't automatically gone in yet.
Okay, so we're waiting on them.
It gives you like 60 seconds. So
okay, cool.
If you don't accept it, so they just might not have accepted it. Yep, yeah, that's all it is. It gives you like 60 seconds. So. Cool. Let me set this timer actually. Why is Jesus is not, let's see. All right, there goes Jesus. And then, wait, but why does he keep getting booted out? Hey, Zeus, are you on a phone or something?
No, I'm trying to, I just got the invitation and I clicked on it. It booted me back over here.
Okay, hold on. Let me try again. 1 second. Did that one work? Hopefully.
Nothing yet.
Hey, Zeus, what organization are you with?
The Adler.
Okay, cool. Adler Planetarium or Adler School of Psychology?
Adler Planetarium.
Got you.
And if it ends up not working, Steve, we can just, talk about.
Yeah, we could. I'm totally cool. That's why I started asking questions. I was like, hey, just in case it doesn't work, we'll wrap with you.
Are you putting the groups together based on their organization?
No, I was just curious.
Oh, okay.
No, it's randomized. I don't know why it's not sending you though to the room. It's weird. Jesus, maybe if you hop out and hop back in, I could then send you to a room.
Sure, let me try it.
Okay, cool.
We have Dorian left too.
I don't know if he's on right now or because he's been on mute though.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But if Dorian, if you are on, hop back on and then hop out and hop back on and I could try to assign you to a room because I'm not sure why it's not going.
All right, just admitted.
I'm just moving people to rooms. All right, well, let's talk with our folks here, T.
All right. So the prompt that we have is, which of your facilitation strategies do you think will translate well to a remote setting? Anyone that's in the group with us, welcome. Hi, is it Tanya or Tanga?
It's Tanja.
Tanja, how you doing?
I'm
Uh,
doing okay. I was in a group. I don't know how I got knocked out.
No worries.
No worries.
Okay.
No worries. So that's the prompt that we have. Would anyone like to contribute? Like, what strategies that you use now do you think will still work in a remote setting?
Well, actually, to facilitate a remote, facilitate a group remotely, yeah, it's beyond me right now. But the strategies that I use when I'm in person facilitating, I always make everybody feel a part and, a part of the group. Nobody is, everybody is welcome.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to translate. Well, I guess just by telling them remotely that everybody's welcome. You're in a safe space. Use some of the strategies that I've learned today.
What org are you with? Do you mind me asking?
I'm with Metropolitan.
Oh, with Metropolitan Family Services.
Yes.
Cool. I've been wanting to talk to y'all actually separately. Terrence and I are a job placement for one summer if you have some young people that are looking. If y'all have people who are looking for work, or you have them already on your payroll, but you need sites to place them on, we might have something for them. We actually do have something for them.
I would definitely let my supervisor know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
we can take on some young people. We would love to have some MFS young people. They're on our list of like, we need to hit them up this weekend, because we have the capacity to serve some young people. If you're already a one summer agency, you all take care of paying them and we'll deliver the program.
Yep.
Gotcha.
And one of the things, Tanja, one of the things, Tanja, that we can always take is we can always take a cookout approach, right? Like, one of the things that makes someone feel like they belong when we think of a cookout is they bring their sides, they bring their favorite dish, they bring a part of their humanity to the larger group, and so they feel like they're a part of the bigger cookout. And so one way we do that in our sessions is sometimes we ask people to bring artifacts, right? So it might not be something that they're physically bringing, but it can be like, someone that they bring that's on their heart, that inspires them, and they share that in the group. And sharing in those artifacts is like bringing a part of myself to the cookout, right? So,
Right.
if I'm telling you, like, what's my favorite song that's really been inspiring me, or who's someone that's really made me laugh recently, sharing those parts are like sharing your dishes with the larger group. And that's a way, aside from just telling people I care about you and you belong and you're welcome, that makes people feel welcome as well.
I'm sorry, I'm at home with 4 little ones.
Don't apologize. No need to apologize. Do what you must. Hey, Zeus, we'd love to hear from you. Sorry, I know it didn't work as well with the breakout room, but if you would like to share about what you're thinking about in this regard.
Yeah, I think one of the things that translates easily is that I do a lot of, when I facilitate, I am doing coding, and I'm doing a lot of, everybody has their individual computers, and I'm showing something on the display in front of them. And so I think something that would translate easily is still being able to facilitate coding practices online, since it's, obviously computer work. But then the issue here is that I connect electronics to it, and that's a hands-on task. And that's where it becomes a little bit troubling. As far as, building the space so that it's a safe environment for them and welcoming them to share their ideas or their struggles through it. I think one of the things that I'm implementing this summer is really like creating activities, creating team builders that are much more like energetic and fun for interaction, that kind of hone into the kind of skills that we're going to be developing over the summer. So I feel that those kind of strategies are really something that can help in building their connection to the instructors that are part of the team.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, Jesus. I agree. That is a way to connect. There are also technical ways. You know, you are well abreast of computer and coding and things of that nature, but there are also ways to bring parts of yourself into that space as well. My son is really into coding, and so some of the pictures he's able to create sometimes can be focused on ways to express identity and ways to affirm identity. So that's an option as well. But thank you for sharing that with the collective. Stephen, are people starting to come back to the main group?
Yes, sir.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I see everybody coming back.
Yeah, the rooms are still closing. You know how it gives you a minute, so folks may still be talking. It says there's 13 seconds left, though, so whatever their last pieces of conversation are, going to be coming to a wrap very soon.
And so, guys, those of you that have already made it back, we're going to put on some music for just a little bit while we wait till we get a critical mass of everybody back in the space, because people are closing up, having their last words, and people are coming back home to the big group.
10 minutes went quickly.
Oh, it does, especially when you're sharing. That is as a tool for everyone to put in their toolkit. When it's engaging, the time runs, right? When it's not engaging, the time melts. It's very different.
You're just sitting there staring at each other.
All right, it's looking like we got mostly everyone home, Stephen. So I think we're good to go.
Okay, cool. Let me reshare the PowerPoint with everyone, or share my screen, I should say, with everyone. All right, that's not the one. There you go. All right, so everyone can see that. Cool. Let's take a second to breathe again, just for a second. I know we just shared. Let's just take another deep breath for a second. So we can stay seated this time. I know last time I had folks stand up. If you want to stand up, if that helps you, cool. And again, just try to locate your breath. Take a deep breath. Try to find where you breathe from. Maybe it comes through your chest. Maybe it comes out of, your lower body. Maybe it comes out of your throat. Try to locate the source of your breath and try to ride the source of that breath with a deep breath. All right, so let's do a deep breath together. Just let it out. And then we're gonna do one more. And if you haven't been able to find the source of your breath, again, you can always just take your hands and rest them right over your belly button. And you will always feel your breath in your belly button no matter what, right? You'll feel it rise through. If you can't find anywhere else in your body where it's coming from, you will always find it there, all right? So one last deep breath to recenter ourselves before we get really back into this engagement piece, all right? So deep breath 1. And release. All right, cool. Let us proceed.
Okay, so now back to engagement. And this is kind of just, again, a summary of some of the things that we want to do. We wanted to do them in person, and now we want to do them online. And now let's discuss a way that we can do that, thinking about it through a sample session plan. So here's a sample 2-hour session plan, right? Again, there's a lot of different options of how you want to do this. This is just one way. But I thought it would be helpful to kind of visualize how we can engage a group of young people through a structured plan. You start by getting them engaged with the hook, with music, with Stephen?
Sorry, wrong slide.
With the hook, mood check, you do some kind of energizer. I don't know if we all like the word energizer, but you can create a new word for that. Then depending on what you're discussing for the day, you want to explain and model that. Then the young people would practice what's been explained to them. Then they spend most of their time creating and reflecting. And then it's very important. It's an area that we oftentimes forget about. We also want to assess how well things went so we can keep improving. So let's go to the first category of the hook and mood check. Okay, so you might, so just in the day and age that we're in right now, right? Kind of the things that people are talking about, you might introduce something about what's happening with police brutality, right? And it's something that's on the minds of all of the young people that we'll be working with. And maybe that day we're gonna talk about, you wanna put a picture up there, a timely picture there, and we would talk about how we might reimagine our world and answer the question, what is truly essential work in our communities? You wanna begin this with some kind of preview to get them excited. It's like a coming attraction. You wanna activate prior knowledge and talk about things that the young people can relate to. And also you want to engage how young people are feeling. So here's some tools to do that. So of course you might say, scale of 1 to 5, how are you feeling? They can answer with an emoji. They can answer just 1 to 5. They can answer in a private chat box to tell you that you're happy or sad, or give you a more detailed description. So there's a lot of different ways that they can respond, but it's important that you understand how the group is doing at that time. Then you want to put some kind of a hook in there that's connected to the topic that you're going to be talking about today. Something that's pertinent in India right now is something around the Citizenship Amendment Act, which I'm living in India now, and it's a little discriminatory, it's a little controversial, but it might be something that maybe you want to talk about global youth social movements that are happening, and you could bring up what's not just happening in the United States, but what's happening around the world, and a lot of the same connections. And then of course you want to have the agenda, the why and what we're going to be learning, why it'll add value to the lives of the young people, and then what we're going to be doing for the day.
And just one other piece I want to just, before we go, keep moving, Del, how are you feeling is so critical, all right? Like coming back, especially to what we were talking about earlier, for those of you who are in our SEL workshop and just our developmental approach to relationships, young people are not often asked, especially in school, especially at their jobs, are not asked, hey, how are you feeling today? And at the baseline, that should always be an inventory check in every session. And again, these are things ideally you were doing in person, and you need to think about strategically how you do that virtually as well, to check for feeling, to check to see where young people are coming into the space, especially because, as we've already highlighted, we're losing things like nonverbal cues and body language and things like that in the virtual space that we would maybe, I typically would know Terrence, and I could pick up on Terrence's cue and know that something's off with Terrence in person that maybe I can't pick up virtually, right? So I just really want to like center all of this, and especially that how are you feeling? Like, just because we are virtual does not excuse not doing that question, that variation of that question every time with your group, checking in with them. And of course, giving them options on how they opt in, as Josh shared. Like maybe they are feeling down in a given day and they don't want to publicly broadcast that. So encouraging them, say, okay, use a direct message then to me so that at least I know that today, 1 to 10, you're feeling like a 3, and I am cognizant of that in this virtual space and providing support.
And
yeah, actually, sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, and it's actually more important, honestly, now, right? Because you're disconnected, because we cannot control for proxemics, right? When we are at our sites, we can kind of control the environment. We can control what classroom they're in, what workspace they use. When people are virtual, you can't control for those things. And so, we were just in a group with one of our partners, and, she's similar to me in that she has children. And so her babies were moving around and my son was moving around making breakfast. There are a lot of things that are happening for the people that are in virtual spaces. And so you definitely want to do these check-ins, because we don't know what someone was just coming from before they engage in our virtual space. Go ahead, Josh, my bad.
No, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think Jared brought that up, that sometimes you'll just have to do it one-on-one, depending on the situation. Sometimes you have to do a phone call before the session starts. there's a lot of different ways that we can do it. So there's a lot of different options, and it's up to you to understand your participants in order to navigate that. So let's go to the next slide. And the energizer. So just because you're not in a physical space does not mean you can't do an energizer. Even the breathing exercise, that's a way to recenter, to refocus, to give yourself renewed energy to focus on accomplishing the objectives that you want to accomplish as a group. So there's different ways to do that, and there's a lot of ways you can do it remotely, as we've even showed you over the last 45 minutes. So I was just looking stuff up. There's a thing called Session Lab, I think it is, but there's a lot of different resources out there that have some great remote learning strategies for doing energizers, like rock, paper, scissors. That's always a favorite. There's a way to do that. There's the GIF challenge, shake it out, shake, 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 shake. There's a million ways, and especially, and I think Terrence had something where it helps you breathe. Terrence, can you talk about that?
I was on mute, my bad. I've actually shared it with a couple of people from our session before, but there are GIFs that are really simple to use that you can follow along with the GIF to do breathing exercises. In the curriculums that I develop for youth, and even for the trainings like this that I do with adults, sometimes I'll just embed that GIF into a slide and we'll breathe along with it. Those are really easy ways, if you don't have a deep expertise in centering or those practices, really easy ways to make sure everyone's aligned, everyone's following along, and to partner with the youth, because they see you trying it with them. Right? It's not just something that we're making youth do. We're really big in, participatory engagement. We are co-conspirators and collaborators with the youth we serve. And so it's really good. It's really important that they see us doing those behaviors and doing those practices earnestly. Go ahead, Josh.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think somebody asked me before about what might go into the digital library. It'd be things like this. You might want to list 30 energizers that could be done remotely. This is exactly the kind of research and things you should be compiling now as you prepare for the summer. Let's go to the next slide, please. Explain and model, right? This is the why, what, and how. This is why this is important. And then everyone has different summer programs. Maybe you're teaching music. Maybe there's something about dance. Maybe it's around civic engagement. There's all kinds of different programs. But in some places, you might be having to present technical information with examples. And then, of course, you might have to model a skill of how to do that activity. So this is your chance to kind of explain that. You want to, especially in general, you should keep the amount of time, the didactic time, the time that you're only talking to a minimum. But this is your opportunity to do that. But maybe like 15 to 20 minutes you can gauge depending on what you need to explain to them. So let's go to the next slide. And there are a lot of different tools and strategies to do this. There are a million how-to videos or different kinds of videos to give context to what you're talking about. Of course, based on that assessment that you do, you're going to understand the kind of different support. Some students might need more depending on whatever challenges they're facing. It can be peer support, or it can be a co-facilitator that kind of guides them through that explanation that you're giving. There's a lot of different ways to check for understanding. We're not going to do that so much during this training, but you can use some of the Zoom tools where people can raise their hand if they understand, yes, no, thumbs up, thumbs down. Another way to do this, and I want to just put just be aware that the warm and cold call. So a warm call might be something like, I'd say like, hey, Terrence, just to give you a heads up, in about 15 minutes, we're going to talk about this topic. I'm going to probably ask you this question. Just be aware I'm going to ask you this. Are you okay with that, right? And that's a warm call. They're comfortable, but that also means they're going to be engaged and listening to you and ready to answer that question. Now, a cold call, you have to be careful about that. That's when you feel very comfortable with the group. And that's when I might just say, Steven, I just out of the blue, I'll ask him the question. He doesn't know I'm going to ask him that question. But that's another way to stay engaged. But again, I push you, do not just throw that out there. You need to be very comfortable with the group. Just like we do in the in-person setting, you can share your screen or use a whiteboard depending on your tools. Polls are a great thing to quickly check if people understand. What I'm not doing right now, speak slowly. This was a reminder to myself to slow down. and case studies and current events. Very important. Talk about things that they understand, that the youth understand. Let's go to the next one. Practice. So you've given them some, you've modeled things for them, you've given the why, what, and how, but now they need to practice that. A lot of times you can practice that in small groups with good guided questions, and allow participants to make connections based on their own expertise and context. And that's going to come from really good questions and bringing up topics that are important to young people. Let's go to the next.
Yeah, hold on.
And like I mentioned, so sorry, go ahead, Stephen.
No, go ahead. That works, yeah.
I know I'm doing this because I'm worried about time, but we can save this presentation and we will have this on file, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually
All
are
right, cool.
we're not only saving it, it is being recorded as we go, and the chat will be saved as well, and all those things will be available to you on savesummer2020.org. So if anyone has said, hey, email me this, or we need to pop out, no need, just save that website. You'll be able to access all this information once it's uploaded.
Lovely. So 70 years from now, this will be in an archive, and they say, what was it like during the summer of 2020? Maybe with this training will be part of it. I don't think so, but maybe. Okay. So some tools and strategies to practice, of course, breakout rooms, you know about that. Small group facilitation, you should join the group to help guide that, those small groups. Eventually, you want the young people to lead those groups. You want to be clear about time. You know, like we're gonna go into our breakout rooms. We're gonna join back in 10 minutes. Rotating roles, the same kind of stuff that you do in in-person facilitation, and then different channels. What I mean by that is right now we're doing everything on Zoom, but you want to mix it up. And depending on what your group works with, if a lot of your young people are, say, on Instagram or Snapchat, it's been 2 years, so I don't even know what's going on in the States. TikTok is big out here. I don't know if TikTok is happening in the States, but you want to be able to post stuff on different documents. You don't want to only stay on Zoom. That also increases engagement to have these, but they need to be accessible to everyone. Let's go to the next. Okay, so this is an example of this, and then we actually will, TikTok is, of course TikTok is huge. How could it not be huge? I think it started as like an education app or something, and then people realized it was a lot more fun it was a lot more entertaining to see the dancing and singing and stuff. I've always wanted to try to make a TikTok video, but I think I've passed that, but maybe that'll be a goal in the next 2 months. Anyway, so this is just an example, but then we actually will go in our breakout room. So you would say, like, we're going to be placed in a breakout room. See, this is written down. I'm going to say it orally as well. And if people might need actual support as well, depending, right? Please take 10 minutes to answer the following questions. Then yes. Please write your answers on the shared Google Docs. So that's a different channel. And we're going to come back at whatever time, right? So that just is a very simple way of giving instructions how to do that. And and there are 2 questions that we want to answer today. Thinking about what might be some critical knowledge specific to your program that youth will have to learn in the first 2 weeks, and how might you present that information remotely. Thank you. So so we're gonna go into our group. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So Terrence, if you don't mind repeating the question, I'm randomizing the breakout rooms again so that y'all can get to meet new people. And actually, because we're gonna spend less time in the breakout room on this one, we're actually gonna put you in groups of 2 or 3 at the most and have a smaller conversation, right? So the first time we did the breakout room, everything we talk about doing, right, we try to model, right? So our first breakout room, we've had large group discussion. Our first breakout room was, 5, 6 of y'all in a breakout room. Our next breakout room is meant to be a smaller connection of 2 to 3 people in the breakout room. And again, this is just to show you in real time everything we're talking about, how you do it, right? When we talk about practice and model, this is what we mean, and explain and model, this is what we mean. So we're gonna get you set up with the breakout rooms again. You're gonna be in groups of 2 or 3 at the most, and you will respond to the prompts. Terrence, if you don't mind reading off the prompt one more time, and then I will also overlay it in the breakout rooms when you're broken out.
Yep, especially for our people that are on the phone, that you can't see these prompts in the chat. For those of you that can see the chat, I've already written it in the chat. It'll be there for your breakout room. But for those on the phone, I'm going to say it one more time clearly so you guys can hear what the 2 questions are, the 2 prompts are. The first prompt, what might be some critical knowledge specific to your program that youth will have to learn in the first 2 weeks? And then the second prompt, how might you present the information remotely? So one last time, what might be some critical knowledge that youth in your program would have to learn in the first 2 weeks? And then secondly, how might you present that information remotely? Thank you guys. Have great times in your chats. We'll be in the chats for 5 minutes.
Cool. And I will give folks the instructions in the chat again and a time reminder in the chat. I'm going to give them a second, T, and then I'm going to.
Stephen, I just left a chat room, so you might have to add someone with the person that I just left. Chelsea's her name.
What? Okay, what room? Okay, breakout room 6. I see it. That's my homie, actually.
Yep.
Let's see. Okay, cool. I just moved there. So I'm gonna just send everyone a message. The message again.
And then Alicia, is Alicia on the call? All right, Alicia, Dorian's down in his room, and now we just got Alicia who needs a room.
Okay, is she on the call?
I'm not sure. She's on mute though.
Okay, I'll fix it right now. I'm just giving everyone the instructions.
Yeah.
Actually, we got time to give them we're a little bit ahead of time. Well, but you know what? We'll stay ahead of time. We're a couple minutes ahead.
Let's give them their time back, bro. We can.
Yeah.
If we in 5 minutes early, that's 5 minutes we bless them with back.
Yeah. We're 4 minutes ahead as of right now. Alicia just hasn't joined her room for some reason. So I'm gonna move Soshi, since Alicia hasn't been able to. I'm gonna move her to 17.
A room with 3?
Yep. A room with 2 to make a room with 3.
Ooh.
I'm just making sure. I'm checking all the breakout rooms right now to see who else needs to be placed. Alicia's the only one out here with us right now, right?
Yep, she's the only one.
Okay, cool. Then we're good.
You ever had that you ain't nothing burp?
Oh, yeah. Rough.
It ain't cute.
All right. Let's see. Hey, Danny, did you get booted out of your room?
No, there was somebody was there on the phone, I guess, and then just logged off.
Okay.
So
I'm going to put you in another room then real quick, if that's cool with you.
That's good with me. Cool.
All right, cool.
Appreciate it.
Yep. It's not letting him join. I don't think. I sent him to a different room, but it's not going. Oh, are you getting the notification, Danny, or not?
No, not yet.
Let's talk about what organization. Me and Terrence will talk to you. What organization are you from?
I'm from Lincoln Park Zoo.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
All right. What kind of program do you run over there?
So there's a program called Artecito. It's basically kind of a little bit of science, a little bit of art mixed in one. So we have a partnership with Open Center for the Arts. And what we do is, so answering the question is I don't think it kind of pertains to me, because in the sense of like when we do our programs, it's open door policy. So families come in and come out. So it's not necessarily something that they need to know beforehand, before coming into our program or the space. So it's
like a family could come in once and that's the only time they participate, right? And then they never,
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So yeah. So I mean that's one way. to answer that question. But how about you present the information remotely in the sense of like how I'm presenting it now? Since we've turned into virtual, everything was hands-on. That's the thing. For our program, everything was hands-on. Everything was like, here's a skull, here's a specimen, here's a tooth, and feel it, see it, kind of use your senses. Virtually, now it's kind of difficult in that sense. But the tools that I've used Prezi a lot, since I felt that has been a very good kind of zooming in, zooming out of pictures and just kind of seeing the overall layouts of the idea that's in my head, and just like it's kind of like a journey that we're going to go through this. And that's what the program has been like when we do it in person. That's kind of like the idea that we want to take them through a journey, take them through the scientific facts and stuff like that, and then then art if they would like to, or vice versa if they want to do art and then explore science. That's all up to them. So
Danny, I got a question
too, actually, more than PowerPoint, to be honest. Like that's like but PowerPoint, because it has the Google enabled piece, right, it becomes default. But like I actually personally really love Prezi a lot. So like when you said that, I just find it to be a more engaging presentation stuff, and especially for virtual, right? So what were you gonna say, T?
I was gonna say, Danny, one of the things that came to mind for me when you're thinking about like how do I deal with the sense of feel in a space that's virtual is by proxy, right? Or like by exchange. So, imagine that like one of the things you're feeling also feels like the handle of a hammer, right? Or also feels like other things that may be home items. You might be able to connect what they should expect to feel with things that are already in their homes or around them or in their spaces, right? So that's one of the ways we can kind of attempt to get over that obstacle. It'll never be the same. My mother-in-law, she loves to do these like virtual tours of museums, and she's in all of those virtual tours. And so she loves them, but we know they'll be different when she actually gets a chance to go, right? Yeah. So we have to find those things that can stand in proxy to give someone that feel. Okay, definitely, for sure. I'll explore that realm of like touching and feeling. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. But thank you for sharing, Danny. It looks like people are starting to come home, Steve. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, and I closed the breakout rooms when you and Danny were wrapping up there because we were at time.
Okay, cool. Well, welcome everybody as you're coming back into the fold. We'll wait till we get everybody in critical mass.
All right.
Give it a second, Josh. We still got a few participants, I think, that are, we just get,
okay.
Yeah, just give it like another 10 seconds or so.
Steven, how are we looking on time?
We're good. We're
All right.
perfect. All right, let's jump into it, Josh.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. So before I go into the create thing, one thing, I had a wonderful conversation with Ashley, and we were just talking about, everyone's still having conversations about what platform to use, Zoom, WebEx, Google, I don't know. I would just really recommend trying to make that decision as soon as possible and keep it very simple. Make it accessible for everybody. I mean, everyone, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on that one, but just keep that in mind.
Can I just add to that, like the best way, how I decided for it. So you had used Zoom, Google Hangout, GoToMeeting before, right? Before we were in quarantine, I've been in meetings on these platforms, but now when it became like, this has to be a platform for the work, I just went full user experience mode. I thought about what my specific needs are as a facilitator, right? If I'm going to be running programs and what I'm trying to accomplish, right? Then what are the needs that I have? What is the platform that best served that? And honestly, the breakout room feature, among other reasons, is why I lean towards Zoom, right? And why I chose Zoom. There's other reasons as well, but just for my specific tool set, what I needed, right? And what worked well for me after doing my own applied research, right? And tinkering with them and really looking at them from that lens, I came to the decision, right, that I needed to use Zoom. I still use the other platforms, right? But Zoom is my priority platform, right? Google Hangout, for example, we use we do some work with CPS. CPS requires you to use the Google platform, right? So if you're doing any work with CPS directly in CPS with CPS students, you're going to be required to use Google for security protocol. So even though Zoom is my preference, I had to also make sure that I'm good with Google, right? Because I know that when I'm doing the work, when Terrence and I are doing the work, we work with Farragut Academy on some projects. Like when we're doing the work with those students there, we need to be able to plug in through the platform that's chosen. So just to add to Josh's piece is like, yes, make the decision soon. And also like the best way you're going to really do it is by that checklist from earlier. I'm just going to go back a bunch of slides, but that checklist from earlier that Josh had, right? This should be part of your checklist of like, what is the best platform for the work that I need to do?
Yeah, and like we said, we'll share everything with you, and we'll actually talk a lot more about the checklist in our next session next week. But all right, so you've done the what, why, and how, right? You've presented that information. Everyone's on a good page. Everyone feels supported. There's all this love going around. Everyone's breathing really nicely. Everyone has energy. We're focused. We're centered. We've practiced. Now we want to create. We're going to spend the majority of our time applying our new knowledge. We're going to perform some kind of tasks with minimal intervention from the facilitator, and the facilitator can make that call depending on the group. And then also, this is a good chance for the facilitator to assess whether the material is meeting its learning objectives. So let's go to the resources and tools and strategies. So one is, it's important that you give a couple different options, right? Of what kind of projects that the young people could work on. You want to give clear and specific instructions. You want to continue the same support you've been giving, and you should know a lot of it will be individualized support depending on the needs and assets that your group has. And then very importantly, like the young people that you're going to be with are going to create incredible stuff. So make sure you're displaying what they create, do it within the group, and if people feel comfortable, do it externally as well. And that's another conversation, but there's so many brilliant ideas and things that that the programs are creating. It's important to display those creations. So of course, at the end, and we all know this, you want to do some kind of reflection. Reflection is extremely important. If there's an area that you want to spend more time on, it's always reflection. And I really urge everyone to do a start of day reflection and end of day reflection, okay? It's very important. It's part of your routine to do this and kind of talk about how people are feeling, what people have learned, how they will apply and practice the skills. And please, please create a culture of celebration where everyone is celebrating each other's accomplishments and people know how to do that. But that is one of the most important things, is to celebrate. We have a lot of things going on in our lives right now. Let's make sure we celebrate those small wins. Okay, so finally, you want to look at, you get to the end of the session, you think you did a great job, but you want to know, you want to need to ask the young people, this is their summer, this is their program. So you want to assess their engagement and satisfaction with the overall session, with you as a facilitator, and also with, are we meeting their tech needs? Are they having any challenges that you need to address? And sometimes that might not come out verbally, or might not even come out in a phone call, but maybe somebody feels more comfortable filling that out in a form, or maybe they do want to just talk one-on-one. But it's important to assess after every session. And you want to make it short and simple. I personally really like Google Forms, and actually we're all going to fill out a Google Forms sheet about this session itself. But you want something that's easy for everyone to use and easy for you to create. And you can use those results. You can use that information to keep improving the sessions and keep meeting the needs and making the lives of your youth, adding value to the lives of your youth and this program. So this is just a very basic example. Just asking, was the session a good use of my time? Does the facilitator care about me? Do I have the devices and internet access? And actually, I'm gonna submit like a sample assessment that you can do, but it should take no more than like 5 minutes, but it should be done after every session. It doesn't have to be, but I strongly recommend it in order to improve the program.
And it's also good for your continuous data, right? Of just getting responses and of the continuous data and seeing, you know, on a day-to-day as things are shifting, as moods are shifting, where folks are at in their assessment of the program. So there's no, so it's good in that lens to kind of amplify and support that work as well.
Absolutely.
You're going to put the link in the chat box, Josh, or do you want me to share that screen?
Well, I've already added the link in the chat box. So
okay. Oh, my chat box notifications aren't going off. Okay, cool. I see it.
It's all good. So what Josh was talking about, a place to capture and assess that feedback. We told you there's nothing that we're doing in a session that we don't want to exhibit for you, right? And so we want your feedback. So I put a link to an example form. We don't want you to just treat it as an example. We want you to actually give us data so that we can shift, reform, and refine how we do this work. That's ultimately what that feedback does when you're engaging those youth. We talked earlier about the fact that all the work we need to do needs to center the voice and the lived experiences of our youth. One of the ways we do that is through making sure that feedback channels is a positive, normative relationship between adults and the youth. And so this is an example of how we can do that even in our session. Give us feedback. And make it quick. You'll see that this form is really short, to the point. Doesn't need to be essays, but it gives us data that we can then use to make this a better space for you. And that's what we hope you do with the youth that you're serving as well. Go ahead, Josh.
Absolutely. And just to build off of what Terrence was saying, there's nothing more powerful. You talked about building a culture of celebration. You also want to build a culture of continuous improvement so that the young people know you send an assessment out the next day, you're saying, I heard you, okay? I know 80% of you said that the session was not a good use of my time. And you say, these are the changes we're gonna make because of your feedback. And then these are the changes we can't make, but this is why we cannot make those changes. So if you do ask for feedback, you need to be prepared to respond to it. And if you can't make the changes, you need to say why you can't make those changes. But if you do that, that is so powerful and it will build an incredible amount of trust. So I recommend doing that. Next slide. Okay. Now, there's so many things to talk about with facilitation. There's so many things. So we would have loved to have covered as well group management, right? Everyone's asking about that, right? Because we were saying we know what we want to do, but how it looks so much different in an online world. And maybe we can figure out another session that we can do on this specifically. I'll just take about 10 more seconds, let everyone review this sheet, and I can send more information a little bit later on this.
And this will be in the slide. This is obviously in the slide deck, so y'all will have this as well, if for nothing else, to be a starting point, a foundation point for y'all to think through these things for your programs.
Yeah, and then of course we talked about this a little bit, and I'm sorry about the formatting on my end, but ownership, right? We discussed this a little bit with engagement and satisfaction, but I really want to push everyone that youth leads sessions. That might not happen in your first week or your second week, but that should be the case by the end of the summer, that young people should be taking leadership roles in leading the sessions. All right, so we've done a lot of great things today, or I hope so. Next week, we're going to talk more about that checklist and orientation. We're going to try to talk about some of the challenges that might come up with, especially with access to internet and connectivity. And then also the roles of the facilitator and co-facilitator. Stephen and Terrence, I know you guys were also doing something around celebration, or what else are we talking about next week?
Yeah, I'm going to pull up the whole calendar for folks in a second, okay. But the celebration one will be actually the week after next. It'll be in the last series, or the final week, where we are going to highlight strategies for creating spaces of reflection and celebration for young people, right? Because it can't just all be that they come here to work. We have to celebrate them. We have to celebrate milestones and accomplishments, and we got to do it consistently. We can't just say we celebrate at the end, right? We have to celebration as part of practice. So we're going to have that. I'll share all of the workshop information that's coming up in a second. One thing I just do want to highlight, I know we're going to talk deeper into it next week, but just because it came up in a few direct messages, private messages I received, as well as I think in the chat box in general, is again, I understand it may not be the opportunity for all your programs, but when possible, like as you're building it right now, start thinking about how do I have at least 2 people on session at all times leading a program. And even if it's just one person leading and the other person is co-facilitating and supporting the activity and doing all the behind the scenes tech, right, that has to happen, because it is a lot to manage if you are just one person. It is a lot, especially if you're trying to manage young people, you're trying to manage session, you're trying to manage tech. It is a lot to manage. And I cannot emphasize strongly enough, if your program's able to, if this is something that you're able to do with a staff member, or even with one of the young people, right? This could be a role for a young person that you build competency in, or if they have the competency already in to do it, that co-facilitator who can help with supporting things, moving things along. The other reason the co-facilitator is extremely important, some of the messages I received were around, you know, what happens when, you know, in a typical setting, you notice Josh is down, you're going to do a pull out with Josh in session and have a one-on-one on with him, but like the rest of the session is going to continue going. That's hard to do virtually, right? I can't leave if I need to have a one-on-one conversation with Josh or Terrence in the middle of session because I'm noticing something about them in their participation, and I don't have a co-facilitator who can continue to move the group along so that it's not a distraction, so that so we're not off task. Like that's a huge challenge, right? So again, I recognize that's hard for orgs. It may be hard for orgs with budgets and everything, but it's something to really think about right now as you're building these programs is, are we always going to have at least 2 people on? And to be perfectly honest, Terrence and I always have tried to have 3 people on in our stuff of like, there's some person who is just almost exclusively, today it was me for this workshop, doing tech, chat box, all the tech stuff so that the other 2 folks can focus on the facilitation and the conversation. And we always do this in all of our practice. And I just want to encourage y'all, if you're not thinking through that, to really start thinking through that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And Stephen, I want to, before we get out of here, I know we're going to cover some of the things that we've learned today and kind of wrap things up. But I want to show people the site, Save Summer 2020. I saw someone had a question like, how can we access the recordings? So I'm actually going to share my screen really quickly, and you're going to see the actual site. When you get to the Save Summer site, you want to make sure that you go to trainings. And so you're going to follow me going from the actual site. So I'm going to put it in savesummer2020.org. Hopefully everyone can see that. You'll scroll down and you'll say, check out those 2020 trainings. And then one of the first tabs that you'll see is training, sign up, view resources. And there's going to be a list of the trainings that we're done. So you guys are part of the effective strategies for virtual facilitation that's happening. And as those trainings are finished and completed, we go back and we have links placed in for you to be able to access those videos. So let's go to a training that's already happened, right? So you see that this training already happened. Leslie is the one that did this training. And there's going to end up being a link that says this training is also available on a recorded webinar. You'll be able to click that training, get access to that video via YouTube, and get access to any other resources. They are doing a lot of work at MHA Labs and with that team to make sure these things are available. If you have any issues when you're trying to get access to this, send us a short email. We'll make sure Leslie and her team get a hold of that, so you'll be able to access this recording and any of our materials.
Thanks, T. Thanks for bringing that up. Just to close on that, if there's any questions, if you want folks go ahead, Josh.
Sorry, could we just close off with the last 2 slides?
Yeah. Whoops, not that one. The other one. There you go.
Okay, let's just go to the, go back. Yeah, so basically, just to close out, I hope that you've gotten at least a couple strategies and tools to make your remote sessions more interactive, interesting, and meaningful. Please keep thinking about which classroom strategies can you incorporate into your remote trainings, and what new approaches can you incorporate. And again, going back to what the first question we talked about, yes, this will be challenging, but there are so many new opportunities for growth for both you and the young people. This is an incredible opportunity for creativity and innovation. And I hope that we can all look at it like this and have an incredible summer. So let's go to the next slide. This is just follow-up and contact information. Like we said, we can provide you any resources. Thank you to Stephen and Terrence for including me on this training series. And I think that's
one last thing I want to, and give you all some time back. We're done a few minutes early. We're here to answer questions. So by all means, you know, if you want to stick around, ask some questions, we'll be here. But one last thing I actually want to raise up. Terrence and I have designed a one summer Chicago program that we are currently, we are a work site, a virtual work site. We have designed a one summer Chicago program for one summer youth. If you are an agency right now that has young people that you are looking to place into a program, please follow up with Terrence and I, because we are still taking youth on for this program. We have the capacity to serve up to 180 youth in this program. And so we are a little over half that number, but we have more agencies coming in, and we have the capacity to go up to 180. If you are interested in learning more about this, it's a program around racial healing work and training young people in the work of racial healing centered practice. We have developed an entire 6-week model. It is virtual for young people to participate in. You as the agency would just be responsible, obviously, for doing the paperwork with one summer and making sure they are paid through your payroll, etc. But we have the content of the program designed and ready, and we have the staff that's going to implement it, and we have enough staff to go up to 180 youth that we can serve. So if folks are interested, if you are an agency that places young people at sites and you are still looking to place some young people at sites, please contact Terrence and I. We would love to potentially work with you. You're on mute, Terrence, if you're talking.
Thank you all. Don't forget to fill out that form. I put the form back in the chat. We'd love to get your feedback on how this session went. Stephen's about to put back up the listing of the trainings. Just to remind you all that we will be back here next Friday doing trainings. We'll be doing part 2 of being an adult ally in a virtual space. And I will be doing virtual strategies, onboarding, and orientation. Josh is leading that. That's where we'll dig a little bit more in that checklist that he talked about. So make sure you register for those trainings. And we thank you all so much. We appreciate you spending this time with us, and we're going to see you guys soon.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.